3 decision theory models. But before we discuss, let us pray the Dominican blessing. In the name of Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
May God the Father bless us. God the Son lead us. May God the Holy Spirit enlighten us and give us eyes to see with, ears to hear with, hands to do the work of God with, feet to walk with, and mouth to preach the word of salvation. And may the angel of peace watch over us and lead us at last to the rich gift of the kingdom.
Amen. In the name of Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. So today is all about decision making, decision theory models. Decision theory models are usually used or applied in business organizations. So for business organizations, it's always that they're in a situation that they need to make a decision, and for every situation and every decision that they're in, there's a monetary value equivalent to that. So lagi ang tinitingnan nila is kikita ba tayo o malulugi ba tayo. Yun lagi yung kanilang um, consideration when they make a decision in a business. So the success or failure of that an individual or organization experiences depends on, to a large extent, on the ability of making acceptable decisions on time. So what you consider always is the ability to make decision and the ability to make timely decisions. Nakakapag-create, you have that ability to come up with an acceptable decision, pero lagi namang late. It's too late for you to execute your decision. So wala din. So it's important that you have the ability to come up with an acceptable decision and make sure that it's on time as required. To arrive at such a decision, the decision maker needs to enumerate feasible and viable courses of actions. These courses of actions are also identified as alternatives or your strategies. The projection of consequences associated with each course of action. For each course of action or alternative, meron niyang numerous possible consequences. Multiple consequences could come up for every action. So if you take action A, these are your possible outputs. These are the possible consequences. If you take action B, these are the possible consequences with the other variables. And a measure of effectiveness or an objective to identify the best course of action. So what are your consideration in decision making? Your courses of action, your alternatives. Sometimes your alternatives are also called option. So if you're in a decision or in situation that you need to make a decision, but it's possible you enumerate all your option A, option B, option C, ano ba yung mga options ko or mga possible or mga bagay na pwede kong gawin. So these are your courses of action. And for each option, meron niyang consequences. So ano yung mangyayari, what will be the events if you take that specific option, ano yung event kung mangyayari yung option B. And the measure of effectiveness for each, you have a goal when you're coming up with the decision. So kapag ginawa ko yung option A, how close am I to that goal? Kapag option B naman, how close are you to to your goal? So, dun mo nakikita yung effectiveness. So, this three will help you identify your best course of action. In decision making, we have 6 steps that we usually follow. First is clearly identify the problem at hand. This is it's a common step for problem solving. First is you need to identify your problem. You need to identify your situation that you're in. Number 2, list the possible alternatives. Again, alternatives are your options. So identify your options. Option A, option B, option C, option D, or how many options do you have? These are your alternatives. Number 3, identify the possible outcomes. For each alternative, there's a possible or a list of possible outcomes. Um, Focus on 1, 2, 3. O sige, enumerate muna natin lahat. Number 4, list of payoff or profit of each combination of alternatives and outcome. 5, select one mathematical decision theory models. And 6, apply the model and make your decision. So we will do all to come up with the best possible decision. So, okay. So, one, two, three. Doon muna tayo sa 1, 2, 3. Identify the problem. Identify the alternatives. Identify the possible outcomes. So, example, the problem at hand is you're trying to check if your business or your business is expanding. So, dahil nag-expand yung business mo, there's a demand for production. So, to solve the demand for production, you're thinking to construct a production plant. Currently, yung production mo, sabihin na natin, is third party. Naka-outsource pa. So, ibig sabihin, mayroong ibang company kang binabayaran to produce your goods. Pero dahil nag-expand yung business mo, lumalaki yung demand, so you're thinking na kunin mo na yung production, mag-in-house production ka na, ikaw na mag-produce ng mga products mo. So, with that, you're thinking to construct a production plant. So, your options are, so we have identified the problem. Number 1, identify the problem. Problem is if you will construct a production plant. Number 2 is list all the positive alternatives. So these are your list of passive alternatives. Your option A, first option is to construct a large plant. Pag sinabing plant, it's the production plant, yung factory. Okay? So your first option is to construct a large plant. So estimate mo in the future lalaki pa yung business mo. So kung gagastos na rin ako, edi lakihan na natin. Option B, construct a small plant. Kung ano lang yung kailangan ko today, for this year, yun na muna. Kung ano lang kailangan kung ano lang size ng planta ang kailangan to meet the demands of the market currently, yun naman yung kikreate ko. So, construct a small production plant. And number 3 is do nothing, continue as is. If currently I am outsourcing the production of my products, edi continue lang tapos demand ka lang or advise them to double their production. Pero wala kang gagastusin sa planta. So these are your alternatives. Option A, option B, option C. Next step 3 is identify the possible outcomes. So possible outcomes, sabihin natin these are your state of nature. So your possible outcome, if for option A, your outcome could be favorable market or the consequences could be favorable or positive consequences. And another possible outcome is hindi siya unfavorable market siya. Negative consequences. So, ito yung pwedeng mangyari kapag option A. Sa option A, gumawa ka ng or nagpatayo ka ng large production plant, pwedeng ang mga susunod na mangyari is positive, pwedeng negative. Option B, gumawa ka ng small plant, ang possible mangyari after you have constructed the plant is positive consequences and negative consequences, unfavorable market. Do nothing, favorable market, and unfavorable market. So these are your consequences or state of nature. So that is step number 3. Identify the possible outcomes. Number 4, for each combination of alternative and outcome, list or identify the payoff or profit. So sabi niya, for each combination of alternative and outcome, identify the payoff or profit. Again, each combination of alternative and outcome, you identify the profit. So, X and Y, this is the profit. X and Y, this is the payoff or the profit. Combination of X and Y, this is your numerical value or monetary value. For X and Y, this is your monetary value. So that is step number 4. Identify the payoff or profit or the numerical value for each combination of alternative and outcomes. And then number 5, after you have done 1, 2, 3, 4, go to 5. For 5, select one of the mathematical decision theory models. Once you have selected, apply the model that you selected and make your decision. So we will discuss along the way are the decision theory models that you can choose from, apply that model, and make your decision. Types of decision-making environments. So decision theory is both descriptive and prescriptive business modeling approach to classify the degree of knowledge and compare expected outcomes due to several courses of action. Your degree of knowledge could be categorized into 3 categories. You can have uncertainty, risk, uncertainty. If you have minimal or 0 to minimal degree or degree of knowledge, konti lang yung alam ko about your situation. You have minimal knowledge with the data, minimal data, minimal research, minimal knowledge, more likely your decisions are being done under uncertainty. Walang kasiguraduhan yung mga um, consequences and your decision with your situation. But if you increase your knowledge, you increase your data gathering, your research, you study your situation, the more knowledge that you have, the more certainty of your decisions. More likely, nagiging mas confident ka with your decisions. So you have certainty. In between, you have risk. Dahil hindi ka naman 100% with the knowledge, with your situation, risk ang meron ka. So, ibig sabihin, hindi buo yung decision mo. Merong mga bagay or variables that could lead to a negative effect of your decision. So, example, in your business, so you're considering to opt in for a delivery service. Ano yung mga risk doon? So, cancel order with your delivery, per delivery execution, that would cause, there's an equivalent cost, tapos nasa kalagitnaan na ng delivery, kina-cancel, or hindi tinatanggap, upon pag nandun na sa destination. Ano pa yung mga risk? If you're trying to introduce a new product, so ano yung mga risk dito? Your target market could accept or they will buy your new product or not. So those, we have different kind of risks in different aspects of your business. So these are your degree of knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more you increase the nature or the environment of your decision making. So we have uncertainty, risk, and certainty. Let's identify each or define them properly. Our certainty, pakibasa po, John Rex.
If there is complete certainty about the future, it is possible to take the best decision as there is only one state of nature exists for each alternatives. The decision environment is called decision making under certainty.
Okay, thank you, John Rex. So, for a complete certainty, ibig sabihin ng certainty, sigurado ka na ito yung mangyayari in the future. So, if you have a complete certainty, your state of nature would be limited to one. Kumbaga, nababaliwala yung ibang state of nature. So, example sa sabong, online sabong. O, dalawa lang yung pinagpipilian natin. Ano ba yung option doon? Pula sa puti, ganun.
Meron o
Yes, Rabs?
meron o wala po ata.
O, yun. Meron na wala. Feeling from your calculations na 100% ka dun sa meron. So, yung chances nung wala is bumababa. Parang hindi na talaga siya mangyayari. Sigurado ka na mananalo yung isa. 100% sure ka. So, bumababa yung chances until na nai-eliminate na yung wala kasi bumababa yung chances niya na hindi na siya, nawawalan na siya ng effect do sa situation. Sigurado ka na wala yung mananalo. So, you are making a decision then under complete certainty. So, the environment, your situation is under a decision making under certainty. Kasi sigurado ka, sure na sure ako. Walang duda, 100%. Meron yung mananalo. Okay? So, certain ka with your decision. Firm ka, sigurado ka, confident ka with your decision. 100% ipupusta mo lahat dun sa consequence or the outcome that is 100% to happen in the future. Number 2, risk. Can you read, please read, Rabs? Number 2, Rabs.
Risk. If there are probabilities of event
to happen is known, then calculated risk is taken for each state of nature which is existing and appropriate decision is taken. This decision environment is called decision making under risk.
Thank you, Rabs. Now, for risk, your outcomes o yung meron at wala mo, your outcomes, meron silang probability to happen. There's a certain numerical or there's a numerical value na mangyayari yung meron, na mangyayari yung wala. Sabihin natin, oh, parehong malakas yung manok. Hindi 50-50 yung probability. 50% meron, 50% wala. Ibig sabihin, 50% na pwedeng manalo yung meron, pwedeng 50% pwedeng manalo yung wala. Those are your probabilities. Or kung hindi man 50-50 or even probability, say lamang yung wala. Pula sa puti. Lamang yung puti. 60% sa kanya, 40% yung pula. Those are your probabilities. So 60% probabilities, hindi pa 100% sure na mangyayari. It's only 60% that mananalo yung puti. 40% chances para kay pula. So these are your calculated risks for each state of nature or for each consequence. With those data that we have, with those probability for each nature, with those calculated risks, you are making a decision under risk. Your decision environment is called decision making under risk. So that's the difference with risk and certainty. Certainty, you have 100% probability. Risk, you have split probability. And for uncertainty, somebody read, Renzo, read. Okay, Renzo, read na, late na. Basa. Number 3. At naglagin lang si Renzo. Curvy.
Ma'am,
Number 3.
if there is more than one states of nature exist, the uncertainty about the event to happen increase, and hence the decision gets affected as there is insufficient knowledge about the probabilities of any events to happen. This decision environment is called decision making under uncertainty.
Thank you, Curvy. So for uncertainty, again, with the comparisons, uncertainty, you have 100%. You're 100% sure that the events will happen. Risk, you have split probabilities. Uncertainty, you have insufficient knowledge about the probabilities. You do not have values. Hindi mo alam kung ilang percent na pwedeng mangyari itong outcome A, what is the probability na mangyari yung outcome B. So, hindi mo identified, you have insufficient knowledge, plus you have more than one state of nature. Pwedeng dalawa yung outcome, tatlo yung outcome, hindi mo pa identified yung probabilities. That could lead to a decision environment that is under uncertainty. So the more outcome, the more alternative options that we have, mas nahihirapan tayo makapag-decide. Di ba minsan, you are in a point of your life na ang dami mong option, ang dami mo kasi pagpipilian, kaya hindi ka makapili. Hindi ka makapag-decide. Ang daming possible na pwedeng mangyari along the way. So, mas nahirapan ka makapag-decide on time. Kasi you are trying to consider all possible outcomes na mangyayari para maging ready ka. Kaya natatagalan ka mag-desisyon in real life. In business or with monetary equivalent, if you have insufficient knowledge of probabilities with multiple outcomes, this type of decision environment is called decision making under uncertainty. So those are the difference between certainty, risk, and uncertainty numerically. Okay? So we're now moving to, so na-identify natin kanina yung step 1, 2, 3, 4, kung paano ginagawa. Step 5 is to choose mathematical theory and decision theory. And now we will discuss the decision theory models available. For decision making under risk, we have 3 decision theory models: EMV, EVPI, and EOL, or expected opportunity loss. EMV, EVPI, expected opportunity loss. We also have decision making or theory models under decision making under uncertainty. We have 5: maximax, maximin, equally likely, criteria of realism, and minimax. Equally likely, criteria of realism, and minimax. And decision trees. If you notice, meron lang tayong listed, 5 listed under uncertainty. We have 3 listed decision theory models under risk. Bakit walang theory model under uncertainty? Bakit kaya wala? Anyone? Anyone who would care to share your thoughts? Oh, ulitin natin. Again, we have 3 decision-making environments: certainty, risk, uncertainty. For theory models, we have 3 listed theory models, decision theory models under risk. Under risk, tatlo sila: EMV, EVPI, and EOL. For decision-making under uncertainty, we have 5: maximax, maximin, equally likely, criterion of realism, and minimax. Bale, 8 in total yung decision theory model na i-discuss natin today are available. Walang decision theory model under certainty. Bakit kaya? Yes, Rabs?
Kasi sigurado, ma'am, ganun.
Kasi sigurado. 100%, kasi for certainty, you are complete certain about the future. 100% ka doon sa mga mangyayari.
So, 1, 2.
So there's
Okay
no
na po.
need. Parang nawawalan ng kwenta yung wala nang effect yung mga decision theory models. So bakit ka pagagamit ng decision theory models kung 100% naman yung mangyayari yung future? Certainty. So walang kwenta yung decision theory models for certainty. Kaya wala tayong nakalista dyan. So let's start with EMV or the decision theory models under risk, starting with EMV. Expected monetary value, EMV, is often used in risk analysis to provide the indication of the financial impact of a risk. If you remember the expected value that we are computing last chapter, diba? You multiply the value to the probability and then you get the summation. Same logic, same lang. You have your value multiply to the probability and then you get the summation. Pareho lang sila. So EMV, expected monetary value. Nagkaroon lang siya ng monetary value. Why? Because the value here is actually monetary value. Impact in monetary terms. Multiply with the probability. And then you get the summation. That's how you get the expected monetary value or EMV. The same logic lang. So again, going back to our problem, so na-identify natin yung payoff for each combination ng state of nature and alternative with the given data or numerical values, kukunan natin yung EMV. Say like, the probabilities, di ba sabi natin, with risk, you have identified probability. So sabihin natin 50%. Even probability 50-50. But it's possible that you have an even probability. For the situation right now, it's more likely that we have unfavorable market. Bakit unfavorable market? Kasi may pandemic. Dahil may pandemic, maraming unemployed. The rate of unemployment is high. Ibig sabihin, majority o maraming Pilipino ang walang trabaho. Pag mas marami ang walang trabaho, this has an effect for businesses or the commerce. Ibig sabihin, mababa ang ability to purchase ng mga Pilipino. Mas gugustuhin nila magtipid kaysa gumastos. So, hindi lahat ng products na nasa market malakas yung benta kasi nagtitipid nga yung mga Pilipino. With that, natatamaan yung sales ng mga businesses. So, sabihin na natin unfavorable market currently. So, we have 70% for that and 30% for favorable market. So, sabihin, with research and data, ito yung na-identify mo probability for each state of nature. If economy is good, it's possible na mas lamang yung favorable market. Sabihin natin 60%. If your economy is good, 40% for unfavorable market. So now your percentage or probability is depending on the research, the data that you have. Okay? Or now, sabihin natin we have 50-50% or even chances for the available outcomes. So, paano natin gagawin? So, you multiply given or the monetary value or the impact of in monetary terms, multiply with the probability, which is 50%. Ganun din dito sa kabila. So, each row. And then, you get the summation. Okay? So, 200,000 multiply 50% is so simple math, 200,000 multiply 50%.
100,000.
100,000. Sa kabila, negative 180,000 multiply 50% is
Negative 90.
negative 90,000. So, 100,000 plus negative 90,000 is
10,000.
10,000. So, ganun yung ina-identify yung expected monetary value for each alternative. Alternative B, or your second option, is 100,000 for favorable market, negative 20,000 for unfavorable market. So multiply with the probabilities. This is 50,000 plus what?
Negative 10,000.
Negative 10,000 will give you 40,000. For do nothing, wala kang gagawin, therefore wala kang kita if the market is favorable, wala kang loss if the market is unfavorable. So 0 multiply probability is equals to 0, add them, 0 pa din. So these are the listed expected monetary value for each option. So if you do option A, ano bang reading natin dito? If you choose option A, your expected, sabihin natin monthly revenue is 10,000. If you do option B, your expected monetary value is 40,000. Do nothing, 0. So 10,000 versus 40,000 versus 0, you choose the most positive outcome. So using E and V, it is leading us to option B, construct a small plant. Okay? Okay tayo sa calculations, computations.
Yes po.
Next. We have EVPI, or expected value for perfect information. The expected value of perfect information, or EVPI, measures how much better a decision maker could go if she or he knows for certain which state of nature would occur. So sa EVPI daw, tinitingnan natin kung or nagkakaroon na equivalent value or numerical value yung point kung saan yung decision maker alam niya or meron siyang 100% knowledge. Alam niya kung ano yung mangyayari. It gives a person an idea of how much money it would be worth to continue gathering information until she reaches certainty. So if you have that certain knowledge, EVPI will help you identify kung how much yung knowledge na yon. So halimbawa, for research in pharmacy, yung mga pharmacists. So kung ikaw na pharmacist or researcher, you have the formula in your mind, EVPI will help you identify kung magkano yung alam mo, yung research mo, yung data mo, para mapay-rate ka ng kalabang company. So that is the expected value of information. So if you're looking here sa ating degree of knowledge, di ba currently we are in risk. Your environment is at risk. So how much, what is the value if tinuloy natin yung data natin or yung research natin para magkaroon tayo ng certainty? Ito yung tinutumbasan or kinakalculate ng EVPI. Okay? So formula is, for EVPI, you get the EVPI first and then minus the maximum ENV. So kailangan pala natin yung maximum EMV. So for the calculated EMV kanina, what is the maximum? Again, what is the maximum among the calculated EMV? Tanong mo, sagot mo, madam. Maximum is 40,000. So we will be using that value para dito. First, you have to get the expected value over perfect information. Paano natin kukunin yon? Best outcome of every state of nature multiplied by the probability, and then you get the summation. So we have two state of nature. Kunin mo yung best outcome each, then multiply with the probability, tapos i-add mo sila, and then pag nakuha mo yon minus the maximum ENV. We have two state of natures. What is the best outcome for this state of nature, and what is the best outcome of this state of nature? Best outcome, you are looking at the most positive value. For favorable market, what is your best outcome? What is the most positive value?
200,000.
200,000. This is your best outcome. For this state of nature, unfavorable market, what is your best outcome? What is the most positive outcome?
-20.
Most positive,
0, ma'am.
0.
Ayun, 0.
Okay? Sila yung close to the positive or closest to positive 1. So this is your best outcome. So best outcome, multiply the probability. Best outcome, multiply the probability, and then you get the summation. So best outcome, 200 multiply 50% summation plus 0, best outcome sa kabila, multiply 50%. So 10,000 plus 0 is 10,000. This is your EVPI. Di pa tapos doon. This is the actual equation minus maximum ENV. With the EMV identified kanina, 40,000 is the maximum value. So 100,000, yung kinalculate natin kanina, minus 40,000. Your EVPI is actually 60,000. Okay? So, that 60,000 could give you, ito ba, nawa, you're 100% sure that large plant will, ito yung certain sa atin, your point of certainty. So 10,000 expected value plus the EVPI of 60K. So it's possible that your expected value or return is between 10,000 to 60,000. If your option is 100% B, your expected return is 40,000 to 60,000. Do natin 0 to 60,000. So ano yung titignan mo dito? Your highest. Okay? So that is EVPI. So again, it's still leading to construct a small plan. Or also you can look at it with, it will take you another 60,000 para ma-identify mo kung alin yung market, anong state of nature yung mangyayari. Anong alternative yung mangyayari? Okay. Next, expected opportunity loss. For EOL, this is the cause of not picking the best solution, also known as the expected regret. Expected regret, halimbawa, with the figures that we have, if these are your expected returns, so kung mag-invest ka sa large plant, kikita ka na sana ng 40,000. Hindi ka kumita, that is your expected regret. This is your, ito na sana yung expectation natin or pwede nating makuha if you choose option A, eh hindi option A yung pinili mo, that is your expected regret. Ganun siya tinitingnan. Yung expected opportunity loss, ganun natin tinitingnan. So, imbis na, halimbawa, tumaya ka sa pula, eh hindi na, tataya ka sana sa pula, kaso hindi ka tumaya, imbis na dumoble sana yung pera mo, wala kang nakuha. Yun yung expected opportunity loss or expected regret. How do we call, formula is the best outcome minus the value of for every state of nature. So identify your best outcome minus the value, multiply the probability, and then you get the summation. Let's do same example. So paano best outcome minus the value? So identified natin kanina best outcome for this state of nature is 200,000. So best outcome, best outcome. For this column, best outcome is 0. So best outcome. Again, best outcome minus the value. Ang value kanina dito is 200,000. So 200,000 minus 200,000 is 0. Multiply 50% is 0. Best outcome for this one is 200,000 minus ang value niya kanina is 100,000. So 200,000 minus 100,000 is 100,000. Multiply by 50% is 50,000. Dito, ang value niya kanina is 0. So, best outcome is 200,000 minus 0, multiply 50, that is 100,000. And then, you have to get also yung kabila. And then, you sum it up. So 0 minus, this is the best outcome for this column, minus negative 180. That will give you positive 180 multiply 50. That is 90,000. So pag add mo sila, you have 90,000. 0 best outcome minus negative 20,000, the value. That will give you positive 20,000 multiply 50. That will give you positive 10,000. If you add them, that is 60,000. 50K plus 10K is 60,000. Best outcome is 0. Value is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Multiply 50% is 0. 100K plus 0 is 100,000. So with this given, expected opportunity loss, pag wala kang ginawa, your expected regret is 100,000. Kapag A yung pinili mong action, expected regret is 90,000. If option B pinili mo, expected regret is 60,000. So, ang tinitin natin dito is yung pinakamababang expected regret. Yung konti lang yung panghihinayangan ko. So that is 60,000. EOL is pointing us towards the option B, which is construct small plant. So pag ito yung pinili ko, konti lang kung malugi man, hindi man nangyari yung mga favorable consequences, 60,000. Okay? That is EOL. EMV, expected monetary value, EPPI, expected value of perfect information, and EOL. Though expected opportunity loss, these are the theory models under risk. Moving on to decision making under uncertainty, we have 5: maximax, maximin, equally likely, criterion of realism, and minimax. Let's start with maximax. For maximax, choose the alternative with maximum output, also known as best of the best approach. Again, if you remember the definition of uncertainty, wala tayong, or we have insufficient knowledge for probabilities. So wala siyang probability of each outcome. So anong gagawin na natin? If we apply the maximax, hanapin natin yung maximum output. So 200,000 versus 180,000. Ano yung maximum output or the most positive? That is 200,000. 100,000 versus 20,000, negative 20,000. What is the maximum output or most positive? That is 100,000. 0 versus 0, of course, that would give you 0. And among the maximum output, you have to choose the maximum among the maximum. So that will give you this, 200,000 if pipiliin mo. That's why it's called maximax, maximum among the maximum, best of the best approach. Okay, so with maximax, this is pointing us towards option A, construct a large plan. Maximum, choose the alternative with the maximum minimum output, also known as best of worst approach. So, anong gagawin natin dito? You identify the minimum output or the list, 200,000 versus 180. And 100,000 versus negative 20, that is negative 20, the minimum. And then 0 versus 0, you'll have 0. So among the minimum output, you get the maximum or the best among the worst. So hanapin mo natin yung most positive value, 180 versus 20, negative 20 versus 0. So this is the best among the worst or the maximum among the minimum output. So that is maximin. So maximin is leading us to option C, which is doing nothing. Equally likely assumes all state of nature to be equally likely. Choose maximum average. So ibig sabihin ng equally likely, sabihin natin na we have 50-50 chances. So ikaw na wala nang study, assume mo na lang na 50-50 chances yung outcomes natin. That's why we're getting the average. So anong gagawin natin? You have to add the values and get the average. So 20,000 plus negative 180, that will give us 200,000, sorry, minus negative plus negative 180,000, that will leave us with 20,000, positive 20,000 divided by 2, that is 10,000. Same execution for option B, 100,000 plus negative 20,000, that will leave us with positive 80,000 divided by 2, you'll have 40,000. And 0 plus 0 is 0, divided by 2 is 0. So among the averages that we have, we choose the maximum average. What is the maximum average? 10,000 versus 40,000 versus 0. This is your maximum. So equally likely is leading us to option B, which is small plant. So for Maximax, again, it's leading us to option A. For Maximin, it's leading us to option C. For equally likely, it's leading us to option B. O, parang tabla-tabla lang. Wala pa rin tayong, ano pa rin yung pipiliin natin. So 1 point for option A, 1 point for option B, 1 point for option C. Parang wala namang ginagawa itong decision theory model sa atin under uncertainty. Uncertain pa rin kahit gawin natin yung decision models. Let's check with the next ones. Criterion of realism. Using this approach, we choose the alternative with the best weighted average outcome based on the coefficient of realism. Again, nag-assume lang din tayo or given yung realism mo or your value for coefficient of realism, or let's say that's A. Same lang, instead na hindi siya 50-50, meron siyang weighted average. This is given, so pwede kong sabihin na your A is 80 or 0.8. So how do we get the criterion of realism? First, you identify the row max. Among the two rows, ano yung maximum? 200,000 versus negative 180. This is the row max or the maximum row, multiply with A or 0.8. And for the row mean, this is your minimum row, multiply 1 minus 80 or 0.8. And then pag-add mo daw sila. Ganun yung computation. So identify the row max and row mean, and then multiply kung A for row max, multiply 1 minus A for row mean. Basically, if this is your 80, 1 minus 80 is 0.2. So madaling sabi, for positive, you have 80%. For minimum row, you have the remaining 20%. If this is your maximum row, that's 80%. This is your minimum row, that's the remaining 20%. So for uncertainty, nag-a-assume ka na ng probabilities. So for this one, 0, sabihin natin ito yung 80% mo, 0, ito yung 20% mo. Pero pwedeng baliktad. Dahil pareho lang naman sila ng value, 0, pwedeng ito yung 20% mo, tapos ito yung 80% mo. It doesn't really matter. Ang output pa rin yan ay 0. Okay? So, ganun natin kinukuha yung criteria of realism. So, 0.8 multiply 200,000. This is, can you compute?
160,000.
160 plus 20% multiply negative 180. That is
Negative 36,000.
negative 36,000. So 160K plus negative 36K is 124,000. Okay? For second row, 80% multiply 100,000 is
80,000.
80,000 plus 20% multiply negative 20,000.
Negative 4,000.
Negative 4,000. 80 minus 4,000 is positive 76,000. 0.80 minus multiply 0, 20% multiply 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. So if nakuha mo na yung criterion of realism, you will choose the best weighted average, therefore leading us to the choice of option A. This is the best weighted average among the criteria of realism. So ano na? Maximax is option A, maximin is option C, equally likely is option B. 2 points na tayo for option A. Criteria of realism. And lastly, we have minimax. For minimax, choose the alternative with minimum in the maximum opportunity loss. So how do you get that? You get the best outcome minus the value. So kunin mo yung expected opportunity loss for each cell. So for this, 200,000 minus 200,000, this is 100. 200,000 minus 100,000 is 100,000. 200,000 minus 0 is 200,000. 0 minus 180 will give you positive 180,000. 0, the best outcome, minus negative 20,000 will give you positive 20,000. And 0 minus 0 is 0. Versus, so you get the maximum opportunity loss for each 0 versus 180, 180,000. 100 versus 20,000, 100,000. 200,000 versus 0, 200,000. That is the maximum opportunity loss for each row. And then you get the minimum among the given. So what is the minimum? 180 versus 100 versus 200. This is your minimum. So minimax is leading us to option B. So 2 points para kay option A, 2 points kay option B, tapos equal minimax is leading us to option B. C, sorry. So anong pipiliin natin? Hindi ka naman nakatulong. Well, actually, if you are to check the steps in decision making, sabi lang niya, select one among the mathematical decision theory models. Apply that model and make your decision. There's no need for you to execute all the decision theory model and then compare. Hindi naman daw ganun yung steps natin in decision making. Pili ka lang ng mathematical decision theory model, apply that model, and make your decision. That's how you come up with a decision theory or decision with using the decision theory models. So if you choose Maximax, with this, you choose what alternative? You choose Maximax, apply Maximax computation, and then come up with the decision. If you choose Maximin, apply Maximin, and then come up with a decision. If you choose equally likely, apply computation, and then choose the decision or come up with a decision. If we choose criterion of realism, apply the approach of criterion realism, and then come up with a decision. If you choose minimax, then compute, and then make a decision. That's how you use decision theory models under risk and under certainty. Moving with decision trees. Decision trees are graphically representation where a decision node from which one of the several alternatives may be chosen. It enables one to look at decisions with many alternatives and state of nature which must be in sequence. So steps in decision theory analysis: define the problem, structure or draw your decision theory, assign probabilities of the states of nature, estimate the payoffs for each possible combinations, solve the problem computing the EMV for each state of nature. Basically, decision tree is similar with what we have done earlier, though yung mga ginawa natin kanina is in table form. Decision tree is in this form, graphical representation. Pero the purpose of that is para makita mo lahat ng options mo. in another form. Hindi siya graphical form. So, parehong um, pareho yung data. You have your option, large plan, small plan, and do nothing, no plan. Meron ka ring payoff or monetary values. You have state of nature, favorable market, and favorable market. So, kung pareho lang nung laman nung tables natin. Pero with this, some organizations use decision tree to mas para mas ma-represent niya or represent niya yung data niya using this graphical form of decision trees. Okay? So you have the option to use tables or decision trees.